Hi everyone, and thank you for watching our webinar. I'm Alexey Smirnov, and I'm Regional Director for North America at SPH Engineering. I hope this webinar will be very insightful for you, and should you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me through the link in the description. Welcome everyone, welcome to our online discussion about drone service provider business and how to find new opportunities for growth. I'm delighted and happy to announce our guests today. Alexey Dobrovolsky, CEO, CTO, and co-founder of SPH Engineering. Also, we have today Steve Akins. He's also CTO and co-founder of Drone Arrival, our beloved partner. And Carson Cal from WISPR, great manufacturer of United States drones. Yeah, and generally the topic today is how to find new opportunities for growth, and we've got a lot of questions, literally dozens of your questions, and I'm really grateful for all your questions and ideas to discuss. I, as a host and moderator today, I've processed all your questions and chosen the most popular topics, so we'll have always questions answered today, or more or less covered. Also, a bit about housekeeping. If you have ideas to discuss, questions, or anything to share, you can use Q&A section. Also, you can like questions and comments in this section. So if you see that someone has asked the question you wanted to ask, also just vote for it and we'll cover it for sure. What else? What else for today? Seems like that's all. And to start our session, I would like with a small poll about how do you feel? Is the competition in the drone industry growing or stable or decreasing? Oh my God. I can see that it's growing faster than your votes. Okay, 10 seconds more. So, 3/4, 74% just supported our feeling and our understanding that the competition in the drone industry is growing really fast, and it's not getting easier or for us, for all of us, to earn money and to find new business opportunities. So that's mainly the reason why we gathered here today. And to start our conversation, I would like to share the idea of our CTO and CEO that he stated in his latest LinkedIn post that the United States economy won't need more than 33,000 US pilots. Alexey, I believe you must explain, maybe calm down or make it worse.
So, yeah, when I started to prepare for today, I just made some research about statistics in United States. Yes, exactly. Maybe next slide with amount, how many surveyors are in the United States? Yeah, exactly. So I found statistics that in past year in United States, it was just around 56,000 of survey and mapping technicians. So idea is that when drones are used for surveying and mapping, we replace old or traditional way of doing of surveys and mapping. But if in past United States, huge country, needs just 56,000 of surveying technicians, how many pilots it will be necessary to do the same amount of work. So we can divide 56 by 10 or by 5, depending on the ratio between productivity of field work between traditional way using total station or something. And we will get just 11,000 of drone pilots working to collect data for surveying and mapping, right? Also, I found some statistics about most popular applications of the drones. And I found it should be some slide as well. Yes. Most popular application for the drones at the moment is the same surveying and mapping, and it is around 34% of all drone applications. That means that to cover that area of applications, we need maybe 11,000 of pilots, and if proportion between different applications will be the same, we will need just around, how much? 30,000 of pilots. And there is a huge disproportion between 30,000 and 352,000 of already registered drones, and more than 300,000 issued licenses for commercial pilots. All that numbers means that competition already should be huge, enormous. And as we are not in the United States, we don't feel that, but numbers says that market for at least standard drone applications is already saturated. That's the idea or outcome from my small research, what we can discuss here.
Okay, thank you, Alexei. That's, in my opinion, that sounds pretty pessimistic. Maybe, Steve, what do you think? Maybe you're not so pessimistic and you see some other statistics or some other trends that can help.
You know what? I completely agree with Alexei that there is at this point in time there's a limited number of, it would seem on the surface, a limited number of opportunities, and you've got so many drone pilots out there that are looking for the same jobs. They're looking for the mapping, the surveying. However, at this point, there's this explosion of opportunities. Drones are being used in so many new fields, new areas, diverse applications that really begin to open up opportunities for the drone service provider. I mean, there's so many, and things are changing quickly in terms of the drone and improvements in drone technologies. The specifications are getting so much better that they can actually work in new and more challenging environments, fly for longer times. And so those even bring new opportunities and whatnot. But I think at this point in time, with all the new opportunities, you do have to take into account how do you make yourself found? How do you create awareness about your services? That's a very important thing. And that's something we talk about when you call us. And we don't just sell drones off a shelf in a box. We actually want to work with you with your training, everything across the board, as well as how do you present yourself and how are you found out there. So I think there's a number of exciting opportunities, but there is that ongoing challenge that it's easy to feel like you can get stuck in a rut.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, you just confirmed this trend that the market is more or less close. I mean, mapping and surveying market is more or less close to the saturation, but probably you can see or you can identify some other trends that also influences the drone market. Like, all these blue list, green list restrictions and regulations, Chinese export limitations or even restrictions. What do you think of all this stuff?
I think, and that's a great question. I think Carson's going to be able to give you a lot more depth and detail into those regulations. That's something that the WISPR team, WISPR drones, have really thought through. They're on their way to be able to cover all of those regulations. But with the blue list, there are a ton of opportunities. Many of our military customers and government agencies are required to use those blue listed drones. Those are remarkable in terms that you have an assurance of what you're getting and where are they coming from. There can also be limitations in terms of what those specifications are with that drone based on what can they integrate into this. And obviously, you can be a little bit more limited. There can be, you want to ask about all the different opportunities and specifications on a blue listed drone to make sure it fits your specifications, and most importantly, your needs and your goals. And so with NDAA compliant, that's really covers almost everything except a much smaller number of government applications. Again, that's something that Carson can talk about. Sure. But we've seen that growing challenge with the Chinese-made drones. There are certain groups, law enforcement can be one of those, that tend to feel comfortable with those. They're easy and quick to use, and so they can become more reliant. I think there's so many opportunities, however, with the explosion of US made drones that have really dynamic increases in quality and specs, that it's really something that at this point in time you really want to explore, and WISPR is definitely at the top of that list.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Carson, do you have anything to add? I know. Yeah, I know that there are a lot of confusion maybe between all this NDAA compliant, green list, blue list, and people just know how to choose the right tool for their project. Maybe you can explain shortly.
Absolutely. I'm going to give a rundown of kind of the history of where it came from and talk about Blue List 1.0, 2.0, Green List, and NDAA compliancy. I think putting the whole picture together will kind of bridge gaps, as well as get people to ask the right questions is the biggest key here. So initially, the DoD, they tasked they wanted to create a commercial off-the-shelf bag of drones. They wanted drones that met minimum specifications, that were cleared as security, and that way they could easily just pull a manufacturer off the shelf. Blue List 1.0 was specifically for short reconnaissance drones, and what I mean by that is they had a very small weight limit. They needed to be under 3 pounds. So keep in mind, this is Blue List. This is the first Blue List. Operational range, 3 kilometers, flight endurance, 30+ minutes, environmental rating of IP53, assembly time of less than 2 minutes, and a takeoff weight of less than 3 pounds. So that's important right there. The DIU is also tasked with creating a process to vet the security of the drones. So they contracted with Dark Wolf and Fortress to conduct security screenings on these drones and their manufacturers. So Blue List digs into even how you have internal communications, how some of the remote workers would be able to be secure on their laptops and computers, and exchange of data and encryption between the drone, the controller, the servers. So it goes much deeper than just what we think of as the parts coming from like a foreign entity that's banned. So what happened was a lot of people were getting into the industry and conducting, let's say, survey missions, but they didn't have any drones that could carry the payloads that we carry today. So what happened then was the Blue List 2.0 began to come out. And to get on the Blue List, you could apply just once a year to go through the vetting process. It wasn't something that you could openly just say, hey, I'm ready, I can submit to it. Because of so many people that did try to submit for the Blue List 2.0 and their funding sources didn't get expanded, what they did was they decided to contract with AUVSI. And AUVSI, they then also brought in Dark Wolf and Fortress, just as the Blue List 1.0 and the 2.0 was using to do their vetting. And what AUVSI did was then created a green list. So we have Blue List, we have Green List. We have Blue List 1.0, which was the short reconnaissance drones. And then you have the 2.0, which is what most of us know and talk about today. But let's talk about Green List. So Green List is actually, it's a good thing. To become part of the Green List, there's a communication that happens up front, and they start asking questions about your security. And what they allow you to do is go ahead and make those changes and then prove you made those changes as a checkbox to get to the next step. So they're there to kind of help you through the process and help you make the right decisions as a manufacturer or company, whatever the case may be. Dark Wolf and Fortress will still be involved. They're reviewing those questionnaires. They're becoming involved, but they're there to help you as well. Once you get through some of the security questions and things of that nature, you do have to send in your hardware as well as software. And they're going to break that thing down and make sure that every piece and component is exactly what you say it is. And they're going to look to see where it comes from. So once you get through that process, which is, it becomes costly, it's time consuming. But at the end of the Green List, to get on the Blue List, you have to receive an authority to operate from a DoD entity. So you can't just say, hey, I'm on the green, I want to go to the Blue List. A DoD entity literally has to send an authority to operate to the Green List so that they can then vet you for the Blue List. So Green List is actually something, in my opinion, we should be striving for. Originally, that Blue List was for DoD. So unless you're working for Department of Defense, technically you might not have to have a Blue List. Now, of course, there's so many different, spinoffs of there, and there are facilities that do require such security, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. So let's get into the NDAA compliant, because here's something that's a big misconception that I talk to people about all the time. To be NDAA compliant doesn't mean that you cannot have a part or software from China. The NDAA compliance has many firms that are on there that you cannot source components from. So for example, ZTE, they're a prohibited manufacturer. So I can still have other parts from China, it just can't come from ZTE. The biggest thing that's in the news now, and most of us are aware of, is there is a push to name DJI and Altel on a banned manufacturer list. It has not happened yet. I can't forecast anything else on there, but it's not on the list as of yet. What it comes down to is if you have a single chip or piece of software from a coverted entity, you're not NDAA compliant. And it's important to note that NDAA compliancy is a self-governed. You can declare yourself as NDAA compliant. It is not a vetting process through AUVSI. So there's 3 different levels that you really have going on here: that NDAA compliant, the Green List, and the Blue List. And I think it's up to us, as well as anybody else in this call, to do some research about it and be able to educate others. And when you hear of people that are being turned down from, say, a small commercial job in a rural area because they want to see a Blue List drone, that's fine, but it may not really be required. It might be that the entity ordering the service or requesting the service simply doesn't know. Blue List is a common name. I can't tell you how many people I run into and they associate, you can't have a Chinese drone, you can't have Chinese parts, and you need to be on the Blue List. And there's a lot of give and take throughout that situation.
Okay, thank you for this elaborated answer. So to sum up it, just a rule of thumb, if you work with DoD, then you have to have Blue List drone. If you work for some governmental agencies, then most probably you should have Green List drone. And or NDAA compliant. Okay, that's clear. Okay, so what we have now, we discussed that we want, most probably the United States economy will need something like 33,000 US pilots for surveying and mapping and other most popular applications. We have these new regulations about DoD Blue List and NDAA compliant. Some uncertain things and rumors about Chinese drone restrictions. Okay, having all that, what is the next blue ocean for drone service providers? What can be done not to be, I know, out-competed or just lost in all this competition? Where to go? Who wants to start?
Yeah, can I
Alexei?
step in? Alexei, yes. So actually, in my estimates, about 33,000 of new pilots for US economy, there is some trap. Because actually it is an optimistic estimate in terms of new jobs. Because most of successful surveyors and drone pilots working for surveying and mapping are old-style surveyors and mappers who use also drone as additional tool. I see that in Europe, and most probably the same situation is in United States. So in terms of new jobs, my expectations, my estimates are very optimistic. So for the new opportunities, there are two actually factors. First is pressure on Chinese drones or obligation to use drones from blue list, green list, or somehow certified drones. You all know that Chinese drones, DJI drones, at least a couple of times cheaper than more or less the same drones made in America or made in Europe. It's absolutely standard and expected situation. That means that instead of Mavic or M300, you will need to spend at least 2-3 times more for the same functionality of the system. Of course, that will raise the barrier to step into the business and will lower competition. Because now you may spend just, I don't know how Mavic costs, how much it costs in the United States. I think around $4,000 or $5,000 and invest some time to get your commercial pilot license. And formally, you're ready to do a business. But with American drone, you will need to spend 10 or 15 or I don't know, 20,000. Another thing is another factor which can lead for the industry growth is to find drone applications and outside of niches when drones are just replacing old ways of doing things. Because in surveying and mapping, drones just increase productivity of data collection. That's all. Drones don't give any possibilities, any new possibilities. Just increased performance. But in terms of, okay, industrial inspections maybe. You know that standard way is to make visual observation, is to use clumbers. Use of drones can create new jobs because demand for such kind of surveys, inspections is very high in the United States. Also, as just example is airborne geophysics. Because if we can make application of geophysical sensor more simple, I mean all workflow, not only data collection, industry can start to use geophysical sensors for the tasks which are pretty new, at least currently, to find underground utilities, blah, blah, blah. So two factors. First is actually raised bar, at least for government public contract and public contracts. And second is new niches for drone applications.
Okay, new niches. Can you please elaborate what it could be? You've mentioned geophysics, and I'm not sure that everyone understands what is geophysics, because here we have more like drone pilots.
Geophysics, I mean use of geophysical sensors, meaning magnetometers or ground penetrating radars, or maybe in some future new sensors like active metal detectors or conductivity meters. In geophysics, there are many methods, but just few of them can be used from small flying drones. So maybe it is just 4 methods, what I already mentioned. But all that methods can lead to the more wide use of geophysical methods and actually creating new jobs and new opportunities. Another directions are environmental monitoring, for example. Currently, standard methods are for environmental monitoring are permanently installed monitoring stations and some using some portable equipment like gas sniffers or something. And such methods cannot cover demand, existing demand for the data collection. For example, floods prediction. So to predict flood, you need constantly monitor water speed in the rivers, surface elevation, and standard method is to use data from monitoring stations. But even in the rich countries, like Sweden, for example, in Europe, density of such stations is not enough to predict floods, actually. And we currently participate in the project, which main idea of that project is to combine data collected from the stations and data collected from the drones to fill the gap actually in the data between permanently installed stations. And I think in many such applications, in many standard applications, which currently don't assume use of drones to collect data, we can find some possibilities.
Okay, okay. And if we are talking about growth and money today, what about money in these niches and these projects? Can you compare it with, for instance, surveying and mapping? I know that you have this slide. Oh yeah, this one.
Yep.
Yeah, what can we see is that, or what we can see is that, okay, these geophysical or bathymetric projects, they're at least five times more profitable.
Yeah, but term of project here is virtual, of course.
Oh yeah,
it is very hard to find statistics, for example, for square kilometer, which should be more precise, actually more trustful numbers, at least if we can compare the cost of the in terms of territory. Yeah, but photogrammetry actually currently, I don't know how it is possible to earn the money on photogrammetric projects, because I see that when we started our business in 2013, price for the photogrammetry data collection and for the processed data was maybe 5, maybe 10 times higher than currently. So drop is huge, and currently LiDAR surveys are in the same position as photogrammetry 5-10 years ago. But as we see, I think LiDAR surveys are currently at the peak of their profitability, actually, in terms of business. And to find new niches, we need to start. Actually, we had to start as today to find them.
Okay, I see. Steve, I know you work a lot with drone service providers, and sometimes you work as a drone service provider yourself.
We do.
Do you have anything to add here about new niches and or maybe some other trends?
Actually, and there's so many trends, by the way. There's so many areas where drones are beginning to be adopted, and so that's so important to keep in consideration. But I think at the heart of what we've been discussing, really you have the surveying and mapping has been the traditional, if you will, services that are offered. There's more and more people that are there kind of offering those services. I think having said that, there's tons of opportunities within those industries, and as your capabilities in terms of the quality of your sensors and the drones expand, like I already mentioned previously, so do your opportunities to grow. Having said that, being able to diversify, to be able to offer advanced technologies, I mean, as Alexei so effectively points out, you really increase your opportunities as a service provider to grow, to build your incoming revenue, and to really begin to offer insights to your customers that take the value of what you bring to new heights. And so you also, obviously, when you look at, for instance, the chart that we're all seeing, you see the opportunity if you effectively plan your projects and whatnot, really work closely with your customers, you have the opportunity to really increase your revenues beyond just giving them the information, the data that they need to really grow. And so there's this opportunity to move beyond that. But in terms of where we can go beyond this, I mean, I see so many opportunities in the inspection industry, all the way to automated inspections, which is something we can talk about on another call. But these involve additional levels of training. You're really staying up to date in terms of understanding where the industry is going, what the needs of the clients are. Having those deep conversations with your clients, you may find out they have interests, they need types of data that you actually can provide with what you have now. And so oftentimes it's a discovery process, with your customer and with your team. But yeah, I think there's so many great directions that you can go. Just beginning to think, how can we diversify? How can we begin to build a budget to add things along the lines of GPR, magnetometers, et cetera, that give us the ability to grow with the needs of our customers.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. You've mentioned about like customers' insights and data that you are acquiring. And I would like to stop a bit here because I see a great comment of Ronald Bell. Hi, Ron. Thank you for coming here about that. The cost of drone magnetic surveys is dropping because there are more providers and more competition, but the customer should be aware of the data quality. And given that all these geophysical sensors or bathymetric sensors, they are probably not as simple as standard photo cameras or or something. How to enter these niches, how to start, what can we do as a drone service providers to give our customers relevant data and data of like high quality and accuracy. What can be done here? Alexey, you are the only geophysicist here. You are the first to start.
Almost geophysicist.
Yeah, almost geophysicist.
So, geophysical applications actually using drones are at the very early stages, except some not very mass applications for minerals exploration where drones are used usually by guys who already have a huge experience in geophysics. So currently, based on our statistics or feeling, we have three big groups of users of geophysical sensors, or some strange sensors. First big group, around 30%, maybe 40% of all our customers are universities. But we will not discuss them. Commercial customers are divided into two big groups. First group are mostly drone pilots, which are going to expand their business in new types of data collection. They can pilot drones. Often they don't understand how sensors work. They don't have any expectations how missions should be planned, what is optimal for the particular sensor or for particular type of surveys. And in most cases, they have a very, very long learning curve. And finally, they have to hire geophysicists in the team or hydrographer, or they will lose the business and reputation. Because in opposite to photogrammetry, you cannot even assess quality of the collected data using just your eyes. You need to know how data should be processed, how data should be interpreted. And it is not, sometimes it is not obvious task, and such work cannot be cheap. Another group of customers, of our customers, are kind of old geophysicists. They can teach how to use geophysical sensor, teach us, I mean. But they need to know how to use drones to carry geophysical sensors. So it is actually main topic of our trainings. We don't we don't substitute in our training courses university courses for geophysicists, but we can quickly train how to carry geophysical sensors, how to collect more or less good data. But to do a project, team should consist of drone experts who know how to carry geophysical sensors, and geophysicists who know how to do quality control, how to process and interpret the data, because for the end customer, result is some report, meaning processed and interpreted data. And when I see some, as from Ron, that price for the magnetic surveys is dropping, for example, that means that quality of such projects currently is also dropping. And maybe we need to lead industry in terms of some standards. So I know that there are a few attempts to establish kind of standards for drone geophysics. And without such standards, which will actually, main purpose is to educate customers what they have to expect from airborne geophysics. We will see the same situation. Many companies which are trying to step into that business, low quality and dissatisfaction of customers, and actually all the bad things.
I know that was your idea to establish kind of certification, at least unless we have all these SOPs or any other types of procedures. How do you think? Will certification help to at least prevent these poor quality projects?
Okay, industry is very young. And I can compare. So my background is software development. When I started 30 years ago, situation was approximately the same as in drone business, actually, in drones, in airborne geophysics in particular. No standards, no certification. Everybody can claim that I'm cool programmer, software developer. But at some point, big vendors like Microsoft, Oracle, Cisco introduced their certification programs. And at some moment, such certifications became popular because they can guarantee to the employer or to the customer that a guy has at least basic level of knowledge of education, and it can do something useful. So maybe not next year, but I hope that some standards and some widely accepted certifications will be also in our industry.
Okay, thank you. That's clear. Okay, now we have discussed more or less in deep details sensors, but as far as I understand, all these advanced sensors and all these regulations, I mean, blue list, green list, NDAA, and whatsoever, requires maybe other types of drones, and that's might be difficult for drone service providers to understand how to choose the next drone for their next projects. Carson, I would like to ask you, because you know a lot of drone manufacturing and drones available. Can you advise how to choose the right drone and what to, take into account and put your attention on? What is important?
Sure, not too difficult. One thing is to understand the client's needs. So what market are you going after? What are their requirements? Do they require a certain GSD when you're talking about photogrammetry? Do they require a certain point spread per meter squared if you're talking LiDAR? And of course, we get into the specialty sensors. But to understand their demands, their needs, I think is important. And then how to meet those depends on the training you receive. So I think it's very important to work with someone who's able to train you for the sensors you plan to carry. Furthermore, to that, it's up to us, the manufacturers, to train the distributors and to be there to support them if there is a question that they're not familiar with, haven't been exposed to, or haven't seen themselves. That gets into the collaboration and communication between people that are in this industry, just as we're doing now. And I think that's super important. Now, there is one thing I wanted to add to it of a comment that was made earlier. Luckily, there are some manufacturers that make US drones that are not 2 to 3 times higher than, let's say, a DJI. So I did want to mention that. For example, our current product line is within $1,400. of the DJI M300, which would be equivalent. So it depends on your needs and what you want to carry and what your clients may require of you. And that's why there's so many different drones out there, but they all have specific areas, and some cover a much wider area and can carry multiple sensors and multiple different payloads associated with that drone. So it's just talking to the right people. Get out there, ask the questions, see the demos, find out what kind of training is offered with that purchase. I think that's super important.
Okay, thank you, Carson. Steve, do you have anything to add?
No, I think Carson really expresses that well, and I think I want to emphasize. I've had so many conversations with Carson and his team. They have a remarkable depth of understanding. The quality of engineering that goes into their products are remarkable. Their ability to kind of educate you, and that's why we feel so lucky being partners with SPH Engineering as well as WISPR. We bring together the insights with our engineering team as well to really be able to, I think, bring the right products to with the training and everything that's critical for you as the drone service provider.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, having said all that, and that will lead us to the next topic. Okay, and given all these wonderful comments and ideas from Ronald, let's have another poll. What would be the industry with the most potential for drones? And then we'll discuss. Please leave your votes. People still believe that mapping and surveying will win. Okay, what do we have now? Number one is still mapping and surveying. Number two, agriculture. Then construction and energy share the third place, and then mining. Okay, and now I'll get back to you as experts. How do you think? What would be the highest demand? For instance, Ronald Bell in comments mentioned all this abundant oil well search or UXO search. What do you see from the market? Carson, let's start with you.
Sure. So mine's going to probably be a little different than everyone else's here, but I think it's kind of across the entire board. I was looking for all the above as a selection. Sure, most of the people I talk to is mapping and surveying, but there's so much interest that's coming about, that's coming from the mining industry, the construction industry, the agricultural industry. It's all growing. It's hard to say which one's growing faster than the other. The amount of folks that have been calling for just open pit mines has been exceedingly increasing month after month. And looking at some of the specialty sensors, they are the sensors that you guys offer. I think that is a growing field astronomically. But I also don't want to put away the agricultural side too. So it's not just multispectral in the agricultural side, it's also LiDAR and photogrammetry. You have farmers that are out there trying to make sure they have certain slopes and elevations across their fields. They want to make sure that the root system isn't sitting in water for a certain amount of time. I mean, it just keeps going. Even just recently, I was learning of how a lot of the DOTDs are doing slope analysis, slope stability analysis on some of the mountainous regions and mapping some of the existing rocks and falls and comparing year to year to see if there is any global movement or localized movement so that they can make preparations. Luckily, I get to talk to people across the whole country and find out new uses and what people are even trying to do with existing sensors. And I find that it's across the board, everything's shifting in a positive direction. So I was looking for that all the above.
Okay, that's clear. Steve?
I think another, and that's very good. I think Carson really has an excellent perspective on those. I think a couple other areas that are going to be even more critical as time goes by would be environmental monitoring. And sadly enough, with disaster management, with changes in the environment rapidly coming, there's unfortunately a critical need to be prepared to monitor, not just in the traditional sense where you're tracking deforestation, wildlife populations, but really environmental degradation. And so there are so many of these different areas that come together to address that. And that's a big, a very important task that we're all going to be faced with, but it's also an opportunity for those drone service providers to be prepared for.
If we are speaking of environmental monitoring, what payloads can be useful here?
Well, I think there's a number of them. But obviously, traditional mapping can really obviously be a key tool to understand that environment. Having maps before and after can be very important, to where you can kind of see the change and be able to have teams respond to disaster management. But in terms of the environmental monitoring, I mean, we work with the Department of Natural Resources, and their responsibilities are obviously to be able to evaluate and learn and understand forestry environments and things along those lines. So you can have everything from traditional optometry, LiDAR, hyperspectral can bring some pretty remarkable insights. Obviously, understanding ponds, lakes, and bodies of water, echo sounders can really bring critical insights, and which can be applied in so many different ways. You can do water sampling, which is an important thing that drones can provide. Because traditionally you had to do water sampling off a pier or out of a boat. And this gives you the capability to fly to a number of different locations quickly and easily, get a sample from a specific area, be able to map it to an extent, be able to have a georeference. And so there's so many things that drones bring that really can make such a difference in our understanding of the environment.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
I do have something to add to that one. In the utilities, we were talking about disaster recovery and management. So there's this big push now for pre-storm or pre-disaster documentation. Right. And that way we can do a pre-event and a post-event and see what condition it was in before and prove that it was damage created by said disaster. So here in the United States, we have FEMA. They work with GOSA, which is the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, and they're going to be looking for those documentation, especially when it comes into the energy companies and the energy co-ops. As simple as being able to prove that that utility pole didn't look that way prior to the storm, so that they can get assistance to make said repairs. So did want to add that in there.
Yeah, and it's so critical for also what almost goes to the services of creating digital, creating a digital twins of cities, to where you can do exactly what Carson's talking about, compare and contrast, be able to have emergency crews be able to respond, or recovery teams being able to respond in a efficient way.
Thank you so much, Alexei. Do you have anything to add? What do you see from the market? In the market, what industries are growing in their demand for drone services?
Yeah, actually, to put the right understanding. So cameras, photogrammetry, mapping, and surveying, of course, will be kind of basic service. Before you will be able to deploy a drone with magnetometer, most probably you will need to do preliminary photogrammetry mission. or LiDAR mission to build elevation model of the surface of the ground, and also a model of the with everything on the surface to guarantee safe flight with the drone, with the magnetometer. But yep, my feeling is that all basic services will not bring too much profit, actually. So it may be 80% of all labor in the project, but it will bring you just 20% of profit. And 20% of all work hours which you will spend for magnetometry will bring you 80% of profit. So that's my idea.
I work less, get more. It's the simplified.
It is normal desire, but it will never happen.
Okay. Okay. Probably the last question for today, and we have several small questions from our audience. We discussed all these sensors, all these drones, and everything. And for me, that all seems like, oh my God, that should be so complicated and sophisticated. Is it really so? How is it possible for a drone service provider to enter all these new niches? And what should be done on their side? What is the best way to start? Your advices, your ideas.
Back to training. It's training.
Back to training. Okay.
What organizations are out there trying to govern that side? What certifications are available in the field that you can achieve? You don't have to have an engineering background. Anybody can do it. But I think it's the training and being involved, getting involved with the advocacy groups, get involved with your local, whatever you may have, depending on where you're located in the world.
Okay, and the next thing you've also mentioned, go out of the office and go talk to your customers, or not you, but Steve mentioned it. There were a lot of questions about training. Is it actually possible to be trained online for all these sensors, or not?
I think it's possible. It's just difficult. You lose that in-hand experience. It's one thing for, like, for example, if I show you how to do something over here on the camera, I'd like to show you and then have you do the same steps. And guess what? Even after training, and even if we're doing the training, there are things that you're going to fumble on, and you need to smile and just learn from it. All of us have done silly things. All of us have come back with data that's unusable because we did something that it was like step one that we totally skipped over.
Okay, thanks. Alexei, you wanted to say something.
So there are few considerations, actually. For example, to interpret the data, say, from magnetometer for minerals exploration, you should have degree in geophysics and geology. Without that, you will not be able to do that job. I cannot, for example. I am software developer. But for the simple tasks using the same magnetometer, for example, for the underground utility search, we can train the customer approximately in 1 week. And after that, customer will spend few weeks or maybe a couple of months to provide general robust results from every survey for every project. So it is not years, it is not many months, but that will require, of course, time investments. And it is not necessary to go to Latvia to get such training. So unfortunately, in pandemic, we trained ourselves how to provide remote trainings. And situation is actually the same even after pandemic. At the date, we delivered around 200, 250 systems in that year. and maybe just 5-10 trainings we provided in Latvia. Almost all trainings were provided using video conferencing and somehow. Yeah, but we cannot substitute university degree or special education like for the demining in our short trainings.
But is it possible, at least at the very beginning, for the drone service provider, maybe to outsource this expertise?
So we actually it is
to this certified and trained geophysicists.
Yes, why not? So it is our standard recommendation. So if you're a service provider, you may quickly get enough knowledge and experience on how to collect data. But for quality assurance, for data processing and interpretation, is better to hire at least a part-time geophysicist. In some time, during some time, you can get enough knowledge for the simple tasks or standard tasks. But in case of already mentioned minerals exploration, most probably you will have to hire professional geophysicists.
Okay.
Yeah, the same for bathymetry. What I see from actually in the data of our customers, they can in days or in weeks, they usually able to gather good data, more or less, but still have problems with the reports preparations, for example. So at that stage, better to work with a professional hydrographer.
Okay, thank you. So it's already 7 p.m. in Europe, and that means that we have to wrap up. Let me summarize that what we have discussed today. So the competition is growing, but there are still niches for drone service provider companies to grow, namely all these projects for governmental agencies based on blue list, green list, NDAA compliant drones. Second thing is advanced payloads, and what is important, that what was mentioned in the comments, like collaboration and combination of these sensors, and that's pretty easy, more or less easy to start. And the main thing you should start with is training. Go back to class, go back to school, train yourself, try new payloads, and get new money. Okay, guys, last advice for drone service providers company, and we'll wrap up. Carson.
I'm going to defer for now. I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to let somebody go first. I got something I'm thinking about here.
I think one of the things I'll just go ahead and hop in is really it's so important to we've mentioned so many things. The training, obviously, you need to be doing your own research, really get in the habit of reading and growing on your own understanding, talking to your customers, really understanding what it is that their needs are. What are the requirements of their industry? There's so much you can learn from really listening to them and asking questions. But building a team around you, which is everything from, for instance, having the group that provides your drones, brings everything to you, to having the expertise of the manufacturer, the software developers, and really, that expertise that can come from a number of directions in terms of having, as Alexei talks about, the expertise that's so required to interpret this data, such as the ground penetrating radar, having that as part of your extended team is critical to your success and really being able to move forward as really an accumulation of knowledge and expertise.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And Alexei, your piece of advice?
So actually, I see many interesting questions here. In Q&A.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe one of interesting question is how to find the niches in areas or industries which don't use drones at the moment. I can share our experience because, yeah, we were kind of pioneers in some areas like airborne GPRs because it was just by occasion, because some guy came to us and asked it to help to find airplane. So every day we receive strange requests, and at least half of them we cannot satisfy because there is no basic technology which can do that work, or there are no light enough sensors to be carried using drones, or just for economical reasons. In some cases, use of manned aviation is much cheaper than using drones, for example, depending on scale and task, of course. But if we see repeatable requests for something strange, we start to investigate that area, that technology, and at least once per year, we introduce no combination of drone plus new sensor. So currently, for example, we started to work with gamma radiation sensor. It looks very simple. We have sensor which can measure gamma radiation. But for what? Few companies around the world already use gamma radiation sensors of the drone. But if you will try to Google some descriptions of applications of standard workflow, or just for what you can use gamma radiation sensor, you will find just few papers. But it's kind of new opportunity, vacuum. When niche is already explored, well described, we have robust workflows like photogrammetry, we will never invest in that, never. But we are happy to invest in something unknown. And okay, we are vendor, we are developers, but the same actually in the services. Every new strange request is opportunity. That's all.
So be open to strange requests.
At least it will be fun.
Oh yeah,
No, that's true.
A lot of fun in our business. Okay, everyone, that's time to finish. Sorry for us not being able to answer all your questions, but I promise you that we will return on all your questions to you directly, either in email or calls. And most probably we should prepare some kind of digest based on this discussion, just to share with everyone who wasn't able to attend today. Thank you again, my dearest guests. That was really a pleasure to have this discussion with you. A lot of insights, at least for me, and I hope for our audience. Hope to see you all again for any other exciting discussion and conversations. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, guys.